Beacon Hill, where our mansion stands, is Boston's most prestigious residential area. The street lamps along the red brick sidewalks cast the same elegant light they have since the 19th century. Old money families have lived here for generations, and my family is one of them. Every morning, I see well-dressed residents walking their dogs along the tree-lined streets from my window. The brass nameplates, meticulously polished by maids, gleam in the morning sun. I spend my days as the vice president of Williams Real Estate, a company that has been in my family since my grandfather's time. From my office on the top floor of the Prudential Tower, I have a panoramic view of the Charles River. My husband Michael is the executive director of Henderson Construction, a well-known name in Boston's construction industry. Our marriage was truly an ideal union of families. We never miss Sunday Mass at Trinity Church, followed by brunch at the Four Seasons Hotel. We spend our vacations in Cape Cod and go shopping on Newbury Street on weekends. Michael and I lived this life peacefully, as a couple befitting this neighborhood. Our wedding was the talk of Beacon Hill's social scene. A solemn ceremony at Trinity Church. A reception at a historic hotel. Live performance by the Boston Symphony. Honeymoon on Martha's Vineyard. Everything was perfect. 3 years later, I gradually began to notice cracks forming in that perfect life. Olivia, going to the hospital again? Michael looks up from his Wall Street Journal at the breakfast table. In front of him sits a cup of the finest Blue Mountain coffee, prepared by Ellen, our maid. Yes, but this is the last time. I respond gracefully, dabbing my mouth with a napkin. I see. So you're giving up? At those words, I freeze for a moment. 2 years of fertility treatments. Countless tests and medications in the luxury suite at Massachusetts General Hospital. Each time, the hope of a maybe this time, followed by disappointment. With each monthly test result, I could feel Michael's eyes growing colder. I have my limits too. The silver fork trembles slightly. It must be something wrong with your body. Why don't you try other hospitals? I hear there are good specialists in New York. Michael's cruel gaze pierces my heart. Lately, he had been blaming me more and more for everything. Each time, my wedding ring felt heavier. In the midst of these quietly desperate days, I received a call from my sister April. I'm pregnant. Her voice trembled over the phone. But he ran away. April worked as a buyer for a luxury boutique, flying between Paris and Milan. My sister always lived flashy, both in work and love. I had never heard her voice sound so weak before. I immediately headed to our family mansion along the Charles River. Our parents gathered too, and it became a family meeting. In the study, Father frowned as he puffed on his cigar. April, don't worry. The whole family will support you. Mother nodded quietly at Father's words, touching her pearl necklace. However, that night, alone in my Beacon Hill mansion, an inexplicable anxiety crept into my heart. The whole family would support April. That decision must be right. Yet why was my heart so unsettled? It felt as if I was missing some crucial truth, and that anxiety enveloped me. The summer twilight cast shadows on the high-rise wing of Massachusetts General Hospital. Upon receiving news of labor pains 2 weeks before the due date, I left the board meeting and rushed over. I parked in the exclusive lot filled with luxury cars and hurried into the hospital. Security guards bowed respectfully as I headed for the VIP elevator. Arriving on the upper floor was like entering another world. The silence of the VIP floor enveloped me. The luxury mahogany wall panels glowed warmly in the soft indirect lighting. The hallway was adorned with paintings that looked borrowed from a museum, and seasonal flowers, arranged daily by florists, wafted an elegant fragrance. On this special floor, executives and prominent figures from political and financial circles recover quietly. Of course, privacy is strictly protected. That's why I felt uneasy about the sudden labor pains. Was this early delivery, 2 weeks ahead of schedule, really just a coincidence? Ms. April was admitted 3 hours ago, head nurse Grace Wilson whispered at the reception desk. A veteran who had managed this floor for over 20 years. Her white uniform floated faintly in the twilight. Her condition is stable. Everything is progressing smoothly. Please don't worry. Nodding at her words, I walked quietly down the hallway. The feeling of the luxury carpet absorbing my footsteps. The air carrying the scent of disinfectant. The indescribable tension unique to a hospital ward at dusk. From the high-rise windows, I could see the sun setting over the Charles River. Lights were beginning to come on in the Prudential Tower as Boston transitioned into its nighttime appearance. I checked my mobile phone. No calls from Michael. He had said he had an important meeting. But wasn't it unnatural for him, as a brother-in-law, not to send even a single message when his sister-in-law was giving birth? As I walked along thinking this, I approached the luxury private room. A nameplate beside the door read Williams. I stopped and raised my hand to knock, trying to control my tension. That's when I heard it. Faint conversation from inside. The nurse left, and Olivia should be at home. Finally, we're alone. Michael's voice. But why was he here? And why mention me? I caught my breath. The air in the hallway seemed to freeze for a moment. Michael, the baby looks just like you. The shape of the eyes, the bridge of the nose. April's sweet voice continues, in a tone like whispering love. Her voice showed not a trace of remorse toward me, her sister. In my mind, something crashed down with a loud noise. 3 years of marriage. Trust relationships with family. Everything crumbled like a castle made of sand. But I still didn't want to believe it. Just as I thought this must be a misunderstanding, decisive words came through. Yes, it's my child. Finally, our child is born. Michael's voice overflowed with affection he had never shown to me. Olivia's just infertile junk anyway. I made the right choice, picking you. Now, our new life begins. My hand was already taking out my mobile phone before I realized it. My finger pressing the record button was strangely calm. In my mind, the past 3 years flashed by like a slideshow. Michael's sudden increase in business trips. Dinner meetings with clients that lasted until late at night. April's flashy new brand items. Chanel bags, Cartier watches. That charity party where they supposedly met by chance. And the endless demands for fertility treatments on me. Everything now connected to one truth. The night ward was surprisingly quiet. Occasional low voices from the nurses' station. the regular beeping of medical equipment. And from that room, laughter that stabbed at my ears. From the hallway window, I could see Boston's cityscape. The lights in the high-rise buildings were beginning to come on, one by one. In my heart too, something was being lit, quietly but surely. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even hatred. It was a cold determination to seek perfect retribution. Yes, indeed. My husband and sister's child. Thank you for such a lovely gift. I whispered quietly in my mind. But this isn't the end. It's the beginning. I will surely return a fitting punishment to you both. I saved the recording and silently left the scene. Down the hallway, nurses were beginning their night shift preparations. The sound of white uniforms quietly echoed in the hallway. Outside, an ambulance siren wailed in the distance. A typical hospital night. But from this day forward, everything would change. Getting into the elevator, I took a deep breath. I needed to call my parents. Summon them. Gather evidence. Things that needed to be done kept coming to mind. For these 3 years, I had played the perfect wife. I was well liked by Michael's parents, and my reputation in society was excellent. But behind that, my husband had been carrying on an affair with my sister. Even having a child. The evening board meeting would still be continuing in my office on the top floor of the Prudential Tower. But I wouldn't return tonight. I needed time to transform this quiet anger into a meticulous plan. As I left the hospital, the security guard bowed deeply. I gracefully smiled back. My expression showed no disturbance. The refinement of upper-class society that I had cultivated throughout my life would now serve its purpose. Getting into my car, my hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. Through the windows reflected in the rearview mirror, orange light leaked out. In that room, the traders were probably still enjoying their happy moment. The real fun is just beginning. I smiled as I started the engine. No need to return to the Beacon Hill mansion. Tonight, I would carefully craft my plan at the Four Seasons Hotel overlooking Boston Harbor. I greeted dawn in the top floor suite of the Four Seasons Hotel. Though I hadn't slept at all, my mind was surprisingly clear. On my smartphone's display was saved the conversation recorded last night. The first weapon in the battle about to begin. Father, mother, and Michael's parents as well, I'd like you all to gather urgently. In my first phone call of the morning, I spoke in a perfectly composed voice. The location, the drawing room of our family home overlooking the Charles River. Olivia, has something happened? Worry seeped into Mother's voice. Yes, I have important matters to discuss. Please come by 11 o'clock in the car I'm sending. The next call was to the Henderson family butler. And finally, to Boston's most trusted private investigation firm. All necessary arrangements were already in place. 11 o'clock, the family drawing room. Heavy curtains softly filtered the early summer sunlight. The scent of tea prepared by the maid wafted through the quiet air. Thank you all for gathering here despite your busy schedules. I bowed politely. Seated there were my father George and mother Eleanor Williams, and Robert and Martha Henderson. Last night, I learned some shocking facts. I took out my smartphone and played the recording. The conversation from the hospital room rang out clearly. The members of both families showed confused expressions at first. But as Michael and April's voices continued, their expressions froze. By the time the recording ended, the room's atmosphere had dropped to what felt like below freezing. Mrs. Henderson's face turned pale. My son, with his sister-in-law, even a child. Is this certain? Father's voice was low, carrying a dangerous tone. Yes. I've already requested DNA test results. Mother clutched her pearl necklace with trembling hands. You're not going to forgive them, are you? Of course not. But a simple divorce won't suffice. I continued my explanation calmly. Michael is severely infertile. He concealed this and married me, pushing the blame for infertility onto me. Then he had secret meetings with my sister and even conceived a child. This is a major breach of trust beyond mere infidelity. What do you mean? Mr. Henderson leaned forward. I've obtained Michael's fertility treatment records. I pulled out new documents. He knew his condition before marriage. He hid this, forced me to undergo fertility treatments, and continued to inflict psychological pain. This amounts to fraudulent behavior. A heavy silence flowed through the room. The investigation has already begun. I spread out new materials. Records from the past 3 years. Luxury hotel stays, overseas travel photos, receipts for expensive gifts. All evidence collected by private investigators. The photos showed the two of them relaxing at luxury resorts. Receipts for brand items Michael had given April. Evidence of them spending time together at business trip destinations where he had left me behind citing meetings. For these 3 years, I played the perfect wife, knowing nothing. My voice was cold as ice. But the act is over. Now it's time to show my true self. What do you plan to do? Father quietly asked. Perfect retribution. I took out a prepared plan. First, have Michael expelled from Henderson Construction. Simultaneously, halt all dealings with Williams Real Estate. The Hendersons exchanged glances. Next, immediate eviction from the luxury apartment I own. Stop all asset distribution to April. Their joint accounts are already frozen. That's not all, is it? Mother asked in an icy voice. No. This is just the beginning. I spread out new documents. Complete exclusion from Boston's real estate industry. Using Father and Mr. Henderson's connections to block all job transfers to other companies. April will also lose her position in the fashion industry. That's only natural. Mr. Henderson nodded gravely. No more mercy for the insolent ones who have brought shame to our family. Finally, a press conference. I showed the already prepared press release. A fraudulent marriage concealing infertility. An affair with a sister-in-law and a secret child. This will cause a huge shock in Boston's high society. It will be like a social death sentence. Father said with a stern expression. That's fine. Those who have stained the family name deserve appropriate punishment. But the grandchild. Mrs. Henderson said in a faint voice. Don't worry. I answered calmly. Appropriate child support will be arranged for that child. However, none of it will go to Michael and April. A wise decision. Father nodded. Then we'll begin moving today. Thank you. I bowed deeply. From now on, our 4 families will unite to corner the traitors. From the drawing room window, the Charles River was visible. Like the fierce currents swirling beneath the calm surface, our revenge would proceed quietly but surely. Michael and April were probably still spending happy moments in the hospital room. But days of hell awaited them. An unimaginably harsh punishment. Now, let's put the plan into action, I said with a perfect smile. I look forward to seeing how much your son and daughter will have to pay. The parents of both families nodded solemnly. This wasn't mere revenge. It was righteous punishment to protect the family's honor. That evening, I headed to the finest detective agency. A former FBI investigator who had served on Presidential Protection Detail promised perfect evidence collection. The cost was enormous, but that wasn't an issue. We'll gather everything necessary. The detective undertook the task in a calm voice. We'll deliver perfect evidence of the affair, all the betrayals. Night deepened. The streetlights reflected on the Charles River shimmer on the water's surface. I looked down at that scene from the high-rise window. 1 week later, I put my perfect retribution plan into action. Like moving chess pieces, each move carefully calculated. The first strike began at Michael's workplace. Vice President, you called for me? Michael appeared in Henderson Construction's executive conference room with his usual confident expression. However, that expression didn't last long. Michael Henderson, you are immediately dismissed from the position of vice president. His father-in-law Robert announced in an icy voice. Simultaneously, the board has voted for your expulsion from the company. What kind of joke is this? The blood drained from Michael's face. Father, what is this? This is no joke. Robert threw down a document. Evidence of your affair. And evidence that you concealed your severe infertility before marriage. It's all here. The air in the conference room froze. Furthermore, it's been discovered that you used company expenses to buy gifts for your mistress. This constitutes breach of trust. Robert's voice rang cold. We won't report this to the police. That's our final mercy. That afternoon, Michael's personal items were packed in cardboard boxes, and he left the company escorted by security guards. No trace remained of the former vice president. Just a man in disgrace leaving the high-rise. The next strike was aimed at April. Ms. April Williams, I regret to inform you that you are terminated effective immediately. The HR director of the luxury boutique announced coldly. We've determined that the discovery of your inappropriate relationship severely damages our company's image. But Despite April's protests, her security card was confiscated, and she was locked out of the office. Paris collection planning documents still lay spread out on her desk. And then, the most effective strike was delivered. You must vacate by the end of today. The luxury apartment manager conveyed in a businesslike tone. Direct orders from the owner. Please wait. The rent, all surely. This isn't about rent. It's the owner's decision. The luxury apartment where Michael and April had been living was actually one of my properties. They were forced to move out that very day, barely given enough time to pack their belongings. What is the meaning of this? April stormed into our family home. This is your doing, isn't it, sister? Why would you do such a thing to us? You have no right to speak. Father's stern voice echoed through the drawing room. How dare you take such an attitude, you who have brought shame to the family? But the baby? No need to worry. Sufficient child support has been arranged. However, none of it will pass through your hands, Mother announced in an icy voice. The punishment continued. Michael's name was completely erased from Boston's real estate industry. Using father and the Henderson family's connections, all paths to employment at other companies were blocked. Similarly, April was barred from finding new employment in the fashion industry. Their bank accounts were frozen. Credit cards suspended. Luxury cars returned to the leasing company. Mobile phone contracts terminated. Like being erased from society, their life foundations were demolished one after another. Michael, how did it come to this? In a cheap business hotel room, April sobbed. Our baby. I know. Michael stared vacantly out the window. This is Olivia's doing. She intends to be this thorough. And then, the final blow. A shocking article appeared on the front page of the Boston Globe. Heir to prestigious company concealed severe infertility before marriage. Secret child with sister-in-law dash. The article was accompanied by Michael's fertility treatment records and photographic evidence of their affair. Entering luxury hotels. Secret meetings during overseas trips. Receipts for expensive gifts. Everything was meticulously reported. Boston's high society was shaken. To think that the Henderson son would. With the Williams' second daughter. Those two, such scandalous behavior. They were completely cut off from social circles as well. Charity party invitations ceased, and acquaintances even avoided eye contact. We can't stay here anymore, April said in a trembling voice. Let's leave. Boston. Michael silently nodded. Their once glamorous life would never return. All that remained were debts and social exile. That night, they packed their belongings and left Boston. They told no one their destination. I received this report in my top-floor office at the Prudential Tower. It was a perfect plan, Father said with satisfaction. We were able to give those two their due punishment. Yes, I answered while watching the sun set over the Charles River. But this isn't the end. Is there more? Yes, one final gift. I took out a letter from my desk drawer. The last message to be forwarded to their new address. To my dear traders. I receive regular reports about your current situation. Day labor and convenience store cashier. Truly fitting ends. But let me tell you about my final gift. I have remarried and been blessed with new life. Both the family home and company are thriving. Yes, this is perfect revenge. My happiness is your greatest punishment. Goodbye. Never return to Boston. After mailing the letter, I walked through the evening streets of Beacon Hill. The street lamps still cast their elegant light. My new home with James is near the old mansion. During my morning walks, I pass by places with memories of Michael. But my heart no longer aches. Rather, I deeply savor the happiness of walking with my new family in this neighborhood. The life inside my womb moves slightly. This child will surely live a happy life, surrounded by a loving husband and trustworthy family. The full moon reflects on the surface of the Charles River. Its light shines quietly, as if blessing my victory. This is the path I chose. And this is the ultimate revenge. Perfect retribution concludes like this. With the traitor's hell and my heaven eternally contrasted.